Scrooge Sunday. Welcome back to the Advent Calendar House, the official holiday podcast for people who decorate their Christmas trees with jelly pastries. Today's is a very special episode because we are talking about the very first televised animated Christmas special from 1962. It's Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol. I am the extremely nearsighted but not that nearsighted Mike Westfall, and joining me are my pals in Christmas TV podcasting. Please welcome two of the elves from 'Tis the Podcast, Julia and Anthony. Welcome, friends.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for coming on. It's great to join forces for this history-making special,
And I already learned something. I didn't know it was a history-making special. I should have done my research beforehand.
Well, none of us were around when it premiered. It was, the date I have is December 18th, 1962. But I want to talk about our personal histories with this special, if we have them. I certainly wasn't familiar with Mr. Magoo, the character, before watching this, but I do have quite a history with watching it as a kid. It was just on TV all the time. But let's start with you, Anthony. Do you remember watching this for the first time?
I do remember watching this for the first time as a kid. ABC Family, back when it was ABC Family, used to play it during their 25 Days of Christmas lineup. And that's pretty much my history with it. It was on every year. I watched every year because my channel is permanently glued to that channel during the Christmas season. And I was always a big fan of the voice actor for Mr. Magoo. What's his name? Jim Backus, who played Mr. Howell on Gilligan's Island. And I loved Gilligan's Island and Mr. Howell especially. So, yeah, that's my history.
Okay, that's great. Julia, how about you?
So I think this is one of those that I remember visually parts of it. But when I sat down and watched it just recently, I mean, it's been all the years since I think I've watched it in its entirety. But it gives me that wonderful 80s cartoon feeling, right? The Jetsons love and the Flintstones love, and it just really brought me back. So I don't have a ton of memories, which isn't that bad for this particular episode because they are covering A Christmas Carol. But I really quite enjoyed it. And I did have a few snippets here and there.
Okay. So I have a very specific memory of watching this when I was in second grade. It wasn't in my classroom. It was another teacher's classroom because I guess they only had one or enough of those old TVs on the big carts that they had to push through the school and pray it didn't tip over. But
those
Best
were the
day
days.
ever.
But I remember being excited in a way that I think I had already seen it before that time, but I can't remember the first time before that time. So I don't know if that memory is just inaccurate or not. It's strange. These early memories of my own life are starting to blend together and get a bit foggy as I get older. But the memories of the things I watched on TV are super razor sharp. And I think that might be a very unique thing to our generation. I feel like 40 or 50 years from now, where we're all in retirement homes watching Saturday morning cartoons in our pajamas.
And still podcasting.
Yes, and still podcasting. Anyway, this special has a very unique structure to it, especially as the first animated TV Christmas special ever made. It's presented as a Broadway production within a cartoon. So Mr. Magoo in this special is an actor playing the part of Scrooge. Did you guys have any feelings either way about how they laid that out?
I didn't remember that at all. So at first I was confused. I had the wrong one. I was like, oh, did I get the wrong Mr. Magoo Christmas special? Is this like the reboot Christmas special? That was a little odd, but it wasn't terrible. I feel like Anthony has stronger feelings.
I usually do.
Hit it.
So it kind of made me wonder, like, okay, so doing A Christmas Carol in television shows is not a unique thing.
No.
but usually they put their own spin on it a little bit. And this was literally Mr. Magoo just acting out A Christmas Carol. And I have to wonder, what was the point? What's the point? Especially because Mr. Magoo himself is a character who lends himself to that Scrooge persona anyway, kind of. He's like this old rich guy. So it's kind of like they could have done the Mr. Magoo spin on A Christmas Carol rather than have Mr. Magoo starring in A Christmas Carol, if that makes sense.
It does. I like that take. I like the idea of this being a Broadway show within a show, and I like the transition to what were clearly designed to be commercial breaks by panning out into the audience and watching a stage show. That was very beautiful. But the special begins really oddly with him singing. Did you watch the version where he's singing this traveling song, It's Great to Be Back on Broadway?
It's great to be back, great to be back on Broadway.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Apparently they cut in later viewings, may or may not be on the ABC Family viewings, but as he drives to the theater, he's going down the wrong way on the one-way street because they want to get those I don't see well jokes very early before they get going. But I get they have to set it up that this is a stage show, but it felt out of place compared to the entire rest of the special.
So if that part's cut, where does it start?
I think it starts right at the curtain opens with the snow and the carolers singing Joy to the World.
Okay. So you get a sense it's a show, but there's not this build up to it where it's a thing.
No.
It's just a show.
Yeah.
That would make more sense to me, probably.
I mean, luckily it doesn't take long to start getting festive and feeling Christmassy once that curtain opens. But before you have this 3 minutes of just, here's a thing. Here's how Mr. Magoo fits into this. He's an actor. But you could, clearly, you could cut that entire opening song and no one would notice.
Yep. I felt like for an animated special, this felt a little long to me.
It did. Well, usually animated specials, especially in the 60s, Christmas specials were just half hour. You got your Charlie Browns. Well, even before that, there was just live action. This was a new thing, but they gave it an hour for this, and it feels like an hour.
It feels like an hour.
It does feel like an hour.
Even though it felt long, it did give me a bunch of the Christmas feels.
Absolutely.
A Christmas Carol, most adaptations never fail to give me those feels.
Yep.
Very true. So we're not going to go through the whole plot here. It's a Christmas Carol, but let's touch on each of the characters' voices and songs as they show up. We touched very briefly on Jim Backus as Mr. Magoo. This is probably his best-known role besides Mr. Howell on Gilligan's Island, but fun connection with a little Christmassy twist to it here. Jim Backus based the character on Thurston Howell on another character he played named Hubert Updike III on the Alan Young Show, and Alan Young is the voice of Scrooge McDuck.
Oh, wow.
It's like a Christmas Inception.
Yes.
Yes.
Hollywood Inception.
I feel like especially the farther back you go, it all sorts of connects together.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
absolutely.
Could you imagine Scrooge McDuck, Mr. Howell, and Mr. Magoo, interacting together?
I want that special now.
Yeah, me too.
But Scrooge is immediately visited by the pair of charity workers. The one doing the talking here is voiced by our old friend Paul Frees.
At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, 'tis more than usually desirable we should make some slight provisions for the poor and destitute.
And I'm interested in hearing your favorite Paul Frees character since he's been in so many Rankin Bass specials. Do you have a favorite?
I like.
do.
What's yours?
Go for it, Julia.
Haunted Mansion characters
Yes.
is my favorite Paul
Oh,
Frees.
yeah, okay. That is the correct answer. But go ahead.
So I'm going to go Rankin Bass, even though I love his Haunted Mansion voices, Julia. I liked him as a Burgermeister Meisterburger and Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Okay.
And as the traffic cop in Frosty the Snowman.
As
who
the
swallows
traffic
his
cop.
whistle.
Okay. That's a good one, but he's my favorite Santa voice in Rankin Bass. When I picture Santa in my mind, it's the Santa from Frosty the Snowman, the animated one, even though my favorite Paul Frees voice ever is from the Haunted Mansion. He's also still Santa to me. Maybe that's why he's my favorite. I don't know. But
I'm going to have to push back hard on that one, Mike.
I know I'm in the minority there, but
very hard on that one. Mickey Rooney is my Ringan Bass Santa.
See, I watched Frosty before I watched either of the Santa Claus or A Year Without a Santa Claus. So that voice is what sticks out in my mind when I'm going back and thinking of nostalgic Santa fuzzy happy feelings. So
that's fair. Nostalgia is a powerful force.
A gift and a curse. But Paul Frees voices a few characters in this special. We'll get to them as we go. But here he's being shouted out of Scrooge's office so we can get to our first song, Ringle, Ringle, Coins as They Jingle.
And wrong.
Ringle, ringle, coins when they mingle make such a lovely sound.
I found this one fun.
Yeah, this one was fun.
Yeah,
most of these songs are pretty catchy.
They are. Some of them are like earworms, but this one's cute and simple, and it keeps coming. It comes up at the end, which I really like. Gets to the point quickly and gives us our best introduction to this version of Scrooge. Just, I like money.
Yeah, he's just straight up about it.
Which is a perfect summation of Scrooge.
Yes.
In every version.
And I also like how they bring in Bob Cratchit to simultaneously sing, It's Cold.
Ringle, ringle, coins when they mingle. It's cold. I love it's frightfully cold.
After trying to sneak the extra coal in the middle of it, we see him sneaking in the back. And providing the voice of Bob Cratchit, it's Jack Cassidy, who was best known on Broadway around this time period, but to our generation, he's the father of David Cassidy from the Partridge Family. And he was married to Shirley Jones. That was his first husband. But Shirley's David's stepmom. But Shirley would then marry Marty Ingalls, whom I know as the voice of Pac-Man, which I thought was so.
Oh my gosh.
That's another Christmas special.
Yes,
awesome.
I'm hoping to get to that very soon.
I love the Partridge Family, by the way. David Cassidy.
Oh, do you?
I love the Partridge Family. I used to watch that. That was another one back when Freeform was ABC Family. They used to show all the old shows in the evening.
I remember watching that on Nick at Night.
Yeah, see, like Nick at Night had all the what I would consider the more classic stuff when I was growing up, like I Do a Genie and Bewitched and The Munsters and the Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island and all that. Whereas ABC Family had like Partridge Family and like, I don't want to say the B tier, but the ones that never took off as or became as iconic as the Nick at Night ones.
Classic movie snob.
Yeah, I feel like they started sneaking in the Partridge Family after they got to the 70s and they started airing Happy Days all the time and they started airing the Monkees all the time. Well, Monkees is 60s, but still, that's when they started sneaking in things like Partridge Family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But, yep.
One thing I don't think I ever noticed until watching it this time around, no Nephew Fred in this at all.
No. Yeah, he's not in this. And this was a pretty true adaptation as well of A Christmas Carol. So I kept expecting him to maybe show up at the very end where he eats dinner with Nephew instead of...
Right. And
but he didn't.
I was kind of glad Nephew Fred wasn't in this.
Really?
Because
Nephew Fred fan.
Nephew Fred and that whole thing is the saddest part of A Christmas Carol to me. When he goes to Nephew Fred's house and sees them all making fun of him in the present, like, that always stings for me.
It does sting, but you need that sting sometimes. You need it.
You definitely need. He needs it for sure.
He needs it. Makes that redemption moment at the end better.
Right. And on one hand, the songs in this are so memorable and strong to me that I forget the stuff that's not there. But on the other, we cut the whole Fred subplot for a song about Broadway. But no, after the Ringle Ringle song and a quick conversation about taking off for Christmas, Scrooge just goes straight home and we meet our ghost of Jacob Marley.
I wear the chain I forged in life. You know the weight and the length of the strong coil you bear yourself. It is a ponderous chain.
played by Royal Dano, whose voice I know best from Walt Disney's great moments in Mr. Lincoln and the Hall of Presidents.
We all declare for liberty. But in using the same word, we do not all mean the same thing.
Oh my God.
Is that
He's
him?
Lincoln?
Yes.
Oh,
That's
that is
awesome.
awesome.
But IMDb lists his best-known role, according to IMDb, as Farmer Green from Killer Clowns in Outer Space. Which
That's a travesty.
Nobody knows him from Twin Peaks here.
That's what I would. No, I didn't. I didn't watch a lot of Twin Peaks.
He was Judge Sternwood.
Was he?
No.
Okay. No.
I used to love Twin Peaks.
Okay. That's just something that was not in my wheelhouse for whatever reason. But I'll catch up.
I can't believe he's the voice of Lincoln.
Yeah.
How is that not his top bill?
I don't
that should
know.
Be his top bill.
They don't include attractions in IMDb, I don't think. I think that's
really unfortunate.
Yes.
Isn't it? You know what's unfortunate is how empty that attraction is a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays. Wasn't always the case, but
I was about to say there's a reason Mr. Magoo is back in pop culture now.
But what do we think of this portrayal of Jacob Marley?
So this is one of the visuals that I remembered from childhood is the blue Marley. And so when I first saw it, it just made me happy because I was like, look, I remember this when I had little baby eyes. I didn't mind him. Is he a divisive character in this one? Is he a divisive Marley's ghost choice?
I don't know. I like my Marley scary, and this one doesn't start as scary as I'd like. Even Goofy has a more suspenseful entrance than this version. He's just like,
It does.
Ebenezer Scrooge, I'm in your room now.
Definitely not a more suspenseful exit, though, when he trips down the stairs.
But then this one starts to moan, that long moan. And all right, then I'm on board now. But open with that, man.
So I feel like he did the job Marley's supposed to do in the story, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I agree with you that I prefer my Marley scary. Mm-hmm. I've said it before on our show. I really like the Gary Oldman's Marley in Disney's A Christmas Carol. Yes. He was really scary.
That's a recent favorite.
Too scary for me. I like my Marleys reasonably terrifying, but not so terrifying that I could really call him terrifying.
There you go. But then this special gets really weird because Scrooge's first visitor at the stroke of one is the ghost of Christmas present instead of past.
Yes.
That unnerved me a lot.
Yes. For a split second, I thought I'd missed it. I was like, wait a minute. Is it out of order? I don't understand what's happening here.
Yeah, they swapped these two segments, and I could not find a reason why. There's an old AV Club article that tries to make the case of better connecting Scrooge's sympathy for Tiny Tim to seeing himself as a sad schoolboy, but I don't know if I buy that. But what I find interesting is this was only the second adaptation of A Christmas Carol that I ever remember watching after Mickey's. And since this one was more true to the source material, I thought, well, maybe that's how it actually goes. But no, I was wrong.
Well, and it just doesn't.
Choice.
It just doesn't even make sense just by definition of the words, right? Like, past has to come first.
Order.
Sequential
past,
order.
Present, future.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I thought that was just a weird choice.
It is a weird choice, and no one else does it.
No. Well,
no, I've never seen that before. So.
Yeah. I mean, if the argument was to connect better the sympathy for Tiny Tim, then you break up the sympathy for Tiny Tim with the Belle side story that I've never been a fan of.
Yeah.
And I don't. Yeah.
But the jolly voice of the Ghost of Christmas Present here is Les Tremaine.
You're the one who's too tight with a penny to buy himself a pair of spectacles. Come and know me better, man.
who was better known in radio than in his TV or movie roles. His best-known radio roles were on shows called The Falcon and The Adventures of the Thin Man. On TV, I know him as the mentor from the 70s series Shazam.
Oh my goodness.
I love Shazam. I remember that series.
Yes.
I didn't know that was him doing the voice, so that's awesome.
That's him. Yeah, well, he's doing his Ghost of Christmas Present voice. He's here in his bathrobe, it looks like. And he immediately takes Scrooge to the Cratchit house, and we meet the real star of Cratchit's family, Tiny Tim, who is supposed to look like another UPA-owned character. Are you familiar with Gerald McBoing Boing?
That sounds familiar.
It's a Dr. Seuss story that they turned into a cartoon, and it's the same UPA group that owns Mr. Magoo. So...
he does look like Gerald McBoing Boing.
Yes, it's supposed to.
Interesting.
But
he's
so...
precious.
yes.
His little head is so cute.
Yeah. For the unfamiliar, Gerald McBoing Boing is this Dr. Seuss character who only speaks in sound effects, like his first word is the boing sound of one of those jaw harps like Snoopy plays. And he gets teased and runs away from home, but ends up being a famous sound effect Foley artist on TV. But here he's speaking actual words as Tiny Tim, voiced by Joan Gardner, the voice of Tanta Kringle in Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Yes, she is.
She had a few...
look at that full circle.
Yeah, she had a few turns with Rankin Bass. I did an episode last year on the first Easter Rabbit. She's the mother in that, as well as the fairy Calliope, who brings the stuffed bunny to life, because the Easter bunny is just the Velveteen Rabbit who grows up to be Burl Ives.
Is the first Easter Rabbit the one where Santa Claus makes an appearance, or is that the Easter Bunny's coming to town?
And it's Paul Free Santa, so maybe that's why that's one stuck in my head. But here's the big show-stopping song of the whole special, The Lord's Bright Blessing. And Tiny Tim steals the show with his requests for razzleberry dressing.
Will we have a gander and some razzleberry dressing? Oh, razzleberry dressing would be nice. Will we have a pudding made of liver while we're guessing? Or maybe razzleberry dressing twice.
Which wasn't a real thing when they made it up for this song, but now it is! According to Wikipedia, razzleberry pie is made with raspberries and blackberries and became a thing in the 90s. After, I guess, this started getting more and more air on, I guess it was the Family Channel all the way back then. But so there you go, kids. You can make your own razzleberry dressing at home.
This is one of those earwigs you mentioned.
Yes. That's one of those things where every Christmas we're putting up the tree and this song gets in my head, so I have to go find Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol and put it on. It's like, all right, we're watching this now. First thing we watch every year after Thanksgiving, we don't do the tree until after Thanksgiving. Black Friday is our tree putting up day. We watch Elf first.
Yes,
good
same
choice.
Here. We do too.
And then as we get going and I start getting this razzleberry dressing will be nice, that's when I say, all right, this is next. So
is Elf your favorite Christmas movie?
It's up there. You know what? No, Muppet Christmas Carol is still my favorite Christmas movie.
Yes.
It's my favorite Muppet movie, and that's, I know, like, a lot of people disagree with me on that. I'm like, no, that's the one that I watch way more often than I watch the Muppet movie. That's an annual watch. Sometimes more than once a year. Sometimes I pull it out in July.
Are you not scared by the creepy Ghost of Christmas Past in that movie, though? That creepy little girl.
That is my favorite Ghost of Christmas Past.
What?
Because I love that Muppety effect. I love that. It's floating. It's in water in real life is how they do that. And I just love the way they do that. Like, from a technical perspective, that is my favorite Ghost of Christmas Past.
I will stand by that she looks like the Muppet version of the girl from The Ring.
You're not wrong.
That too is my favorite version of any Muppet movie.
Yes.
And it is my favorite version of A Christmas Carol.
Yep.
And it does rival for my favorite Christmas movie of all time too.
I cannot say what my favorite version of A Christmas Carol is yet because we haven't covered it.
Well, all right.
Well, I don't know what to say right now because you've been dropping these little bombs and
So kids, you can make your own raspberry dressing at home. Waffle jelly cake, on the other hand, jury's still out on what that is. I don't know if y'all want to decorate your tree with it, though, but hey. I like the structure of this song. The kids get excited about Christmas dinner and having a tree, but their dad has to let them down gently. We can't afford these things. Mm-hmm. But keep dreaming of the day we will and prize what you have now, as he words it. Be thankful for what we do have, and I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have the Lord's bright blessing, and knowing we're together, heart and hand, we'll make the whitest Christmas, the very brightest Christmas, a Christmas far more glorious than grand.
Yeah, I quite like this family. I like this version of Tim's family too. The Cratchit family in and of itself. I really love this version. I think they're wonderful.
I think they were a little soft on Scrooge in this version. You know,
look at you, like, dude, it's like a redemption story.
But you know,
they were too redemptive.
No. I meant the Cratchits. You know, in some versions, like Mrs. Cratchit in particular, is very hard on Scrooge.
Well, we're gonna get
she
there.
Gives him some strong words.
We're gonna get there because that's another thing that's out of order for no reason. Because. And that ruins that whole argument with the redemption of Tiny Tim. No, by putting things out of order, you have to clean up afterwards. And that's what they had to do here. But one weird thing about this segment is as the song ends, and it's one of these commercial breaks right after, it pans out of the Cratchit house and up into the skies over London, and then later back to the curtain scene as we cut to commercial. How big is this set, and what are we really seeing here? It's fun to do this with cartoon transitions, but when you think about this is supposed to be a play, what are we really seeing, and what are they just doing to show off, hey, we can animate things now?
Well, see, I was
funny.
Totally confused by it. Because on the one hand, this looks like a very expensive Broadway production. Yeah. But on the other hand, then you have the Ghost of Christmas Present wearing a bathrobe, and it looks like they cheaped down the costumes a little bit. So I don't know what's going on here.
Spent all our money on this giant set that folds into itself. So that's Act 1. And then Act 2 now begins with the Ghost of Christmas Past, also voiced by Joan Gardner.
I am the ghost of Christmas past.
Long past?
No, your past.
Out of order aside, what do y'all think of this Ghost of Christmas Past?
It's a Candlehead version.
Yes.
Candlehead's never been my favorite, which I know it's the accurate one from the book, but I've never liked the Candlehead personally. I don't know. The colors were pretty. In general, I like the color of the animation in this special because it harkens back to those,
yeah.
It makes me think of the Jetsons. It makes me think of all the old cartoons that make me so happy. So I didn't mind it too much, but it's just never been my favorite ghost ever.
I am in full disagreement with Julia here.
Oh.
I always liked the Candlehead version, so I was very happy to see the Candlelight version showing up here. Again, just like Marley, in my opinion, is supposed to be the scarier the better per the book. Like, if you go full-on Candlehead version, I'm very happy about that.
This one's fine. I feel it reminds me of, you ever play The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker with where they all have the big almond eyes? It's the shape of the eyes that does it here with me. But when I played that game, that game first came out and they redesigned it, like, he looks like the Ghost of Christmas Past.
Well, so it's not my favorite Candlehead version. My favorite Candlehead version is actually Disney's.
I was going to say, is it Jim Carrey's? Because that literal Candlehead.
Yeah, the literal Candlehead.
Yes. This one, and it does seem to fit that Dickens description of having an androgynous figure of an indeterminate age with the flame above the head. Not my favorite version of the ghost. But seeing as this is supposed to be a stage show, it's fine. We get the old flying over the city into the shadows on the set that just expands at will of things that happen. And inside the old schoolhouse, we meet the young Ebenezer Scrooge sitting alone and crying as he sings Alone in the World.
When you're alone, alone in the world, when you're alone in the world, blown the way leaves get blown in the world, swirled away leaves get swirled.
Wah, wah.
So these songs, again, I'm gonna go back to my Christmas Carol preferences. I'm never a fan of the songs in the musical versions of the show when he's younger. Like him and his love story in general, like which they didn't, but like I don't like the past songs.
Okay.
In any of these versions, I feel they slow it all down. I will make an exception for Fezziwig songs in a lot of versions because Fezziwig is such a joyful character.
Yes.
But when he was singing this "Woe Is Me" song in this version, I just kind of wanted to hit that 20-second skip button until I got to the end of it.
Just the past is always sad for me, which it's supposed to be, and I get that. But not many Christmas Carol versions have this part of the story that I like very much. But me, it's usually the bell stuff. I hate the bell song. Like to bring it back to Muppets Christmas Carol, that is my least favorite part of that whole movie is when Belle sings. And I love the versions where they cut that whole thing out.
That was the theatrical version, so.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of that song, so.
I don't know. So.
But I don't know. I felt bad for him. It's not a terrible song. It's not the one that I go back to.
It's not the one I go back to, but it's perhaps unexpected, and maybe that's why I like it more than I think a lot of other people like it. Usually, you're only in the scene for a brief bit and you move on, but for some reason, this stands out for me. And it's the one line, millions of grains of sand in the world, why such a lonely beach? And it's so poignant. They're not even at a beach, but I could picture that scene in the one lyric paints.
Yeah. That's a good lyric.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting because normally I find the past lasts the longest. And you say usually it just moves on?
Just the part of him in the school, just the part of him in the schoolhouse, and then it gets to the Fezziwig stuff.
They cover a lot of ground in the past. Yeah, they cover a lot of years of him growing up.
Right. Which begs, it begs a question, like, how long is he actually, like, I know it's one night, but, like, there has to be some time manipulation going on in these stories.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. The voice of young Scrooge is credited to Marie Matthews, who is known for singing this song and nothing else. But she crushed it, I think.
She was a very good singer. And you know what? Good for if this is literally the only thing on her resume, it's not a bad thing to have compared to some actors.
She's that part of history.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I saw as I was researching this, and I don't have the link on me, but there was a sort of event where Marie Matthews is the only member of the cast to show up. A lot of that could be because she might be one of the few that's still alive at this point.
I was about to say, I know Jim Backus, sadly, was...
She's older now, because this is now 55 years old. Wow. But she doesn't have any other credits on IMDb, so I found that fascinating that this was it. Then the Ghost of Christmas Past has to drag Scrooge away from his younger self to another Christmas at Fezziwig's, and here's Paul Frees again with a Santa voice.
Yo-ho, my boys. No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick. Christmas, Ebenezer.
And Jack Cassidy is back as the voice of Dick Wilkins, not singing here. Both characters are just in and out as usual, and that's just to get us to the real star of this scene, Belle, as played by Jane Keane, who would later become best known as the second Trixie Norton on the later Honeymooner segments of the Jackie Gleason show.
Huh. I didn't know that.
And then later, she'd be the straight-laced teacher from Pete's Dragon.
That's what I know her from.
Me too.
Miss
love
Taylor
that
was her
movie.
name, I think.
That sounds right.
Yeah. I love that movie.
I love that movie.
But I never would have connected her with this Belle.
No.
No. But the final scene from the past, of course, is Belle releasing Scrooge, in her words, from their engagement in the form of a song called Winter Was Warm.
Winter was warm, summer soft that year, the winter was warm, without a sign of frost, like winter lost its way that year.
Again, I'm gonna have to echo what Julia said. Not a fan of Belle or her songs, and I'm grateful Belle wasn't in this as much as she is in some specials, but still, yeah.
I like this song better than When Love Is Gone.
Yes,
Yep.
I will agree with that.
Yeah, and this one actually got to stay in the special, so hooray!
There is only one version of Belle I actually like.
Oh, who's that?
And
Jennifer Love Hewitt in the Kelsey Grammer version of A Christmas Carol, the Hallmark one.
Okay, yeah. Oh, I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, she's the only version. I found her. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, Belle. I don't know.
more tolerable than any other Belle.
Yeah.
Is that where you were going?
More tolerable
The
than
low
any
bar.
other Belle. Probably easy on the eyes, Probably.
I mean, for what Mickey's Christmas Carol is, Daisy Duck does a bang-up job, but it's in and out, but again, it was a short featurette before The Rescuers, so.
I have to make a comment there.
Oh.
Daisy Duck does an awesome job, but then when you think about the fact that Scrooge McDuck is Donald's uncle,
Yeah,
and
well.
his wife is yeah.
They're all.
Way to ruin it, Anthony.
No, I feel like we had that conversation when we were talking about. I did an episode on this, so we had that same conversation. My only other question with Belle and the scene is, what is with her Dr. Seuss hairstyle?
Yes.
Yeah, that thing is Cindy Lou Who as it gets.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was Cindy Lou Who, which
Yes.
came after this.
Yeah.
So did Cindy Lou Who,
Yeah.
was that design based on this? But I mean, you have Gerald McBoing, which is a Dr. Seuss character that they animated. So it looks like a yellow pawn from Sorry. Or maybe it's supposed to be shaped like a bell. I don't know if they did that on purpose, but I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, maybe.
But I like that our Ghost of Christmas Past cackles at the sobbing Scrooge after that.
Make me, leave me.
That's cold. That's the coldest Ghost of Christmas Past I think I've ever seen.
That is rough.
And on one hand, it really threw me off, but on the other, I think that might have been the intention, because that's the only really good transition you can have if you're doing this out of order, and now you're at the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, who sort of appears from nothing in a wisp of smoke, almost, behind Scrooge.
Right.
I liked the cackling, and I kind of like that. It was a he, right? It was a flame head. It was a he.
Yeah. It's supposed to be ambiguous.
Yeah. So I like that the Ghost of Christmas Past, we'll just call it that,
Yeah.
cackled at him. I don't think the ghost should show remorse to Scrooge.
No.
And if any of them do, the only one should be present.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, they should. It should be. And again, that's maybe it's cynical Anthony, but I like My Christmas Carol. that lead into horror. And I like when Scrooge is taught the hard lesson.
It's a ghost story.
Except the nephew lesson, because that's even too cruel for me.
Well. But let's talk about the Ghost of Christmas Future now. I enjoyed this version. A lot of the Christmas Future portrayals on TV and in movies are all very similar. They're all in the cloak, but this one comes with a kettle drum sound effect that I think sets as dark of a tone as you're going to get with this particular animation style.
You are about to show me shadows of things that will happen in the time before us. Is that so, Spirit?
Yes. And the red was an interesting choice. You don't see many red robes on Future.
No,
usually he's all
don't.
black and he's shrouded, and it was kind of a neat change. I didn't mind it, and I like the skeleton hand.
Yes.
So that was great. Creepy enough for me.
I really like the red too. It's very like blood-like.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of is. I didn't think about it like that, but that's the only way this could stand out on that grayish background.
Yeah.
Before we get into this next big scene of the future, as they're looking through the window, there's a mouse that can see Scrooge and the ghost, which I thought was odd, but it's there as a sight gag, but it took me out of it for a split second. Like, wait a minute. This is the future. There's a lot of questions. But then we get the scene at Old Joe's junk shop, and Paul Frees is doing double duty here as both Old Joe and the Undertaker. And the female voices are Joan Gardner again and Laura Ulsher, who is also Mrs. Cratchit. She's known for this special, and that's it, really. Had a couple of other voices in Mr. Magoo cartoons and the Pink Panther, but you have these four characters sing an unexpected showstopper called We're Despicable.
We're despicable. We make ourselves insinkable.
Berate ourselves, hate ourselves viciously.
Still none of us wishes E. Good shine.
What do y'all think about this one?
I hated this one.
Yeah,
well, especially because, right, these characters aren't supposed to view themselves as despicable. They're supposed to view, like, this guy got what he deserved, and we're not doing anything wrong.
Right. Yeah.
So this song really bothered me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like this one.
No, it's out of place, and it feels so long. Way longer than it needs to be. We got to pad an hour. The only highlight, I feel, is the one part of the chorus where they're la 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 la, where you only see their very uniquely shaped mouths, and among the four of them, they have, I think, 11 or 12 teeth.
Oh my gosh. Yes, the mouth part. That's really something special.
That's it. We can animate. But other than that, there's no reason this needs to be in here besides we cut a lot of other parts and we needed another song and we got Paul Frees in the studio anyway, so here we go.
Yeah. Yeah, might as well use him.
Back at the Cratchit house to establish Tiny Tim is gone, then to Scrooge's grave, and as he begs for redemption, the ghost of Christmas yet to come sort of dissolves away, and Scrooge sings a reprise of All Alone in the World again, and then...
Spirit, don't leave me here alone. Oh, I'm afraid.
You don't know how it feels when you talk and nobody's voice talks back.
Very quickly, we're back in the bedroom of a redeemed Scrooge who almost falls out of his window and hangs by his bare feet for quite a long time.
So I will say, when the ghost of Christmas Future dissolves away, I once again thought, man, this budget's all over the place.
Yes.
This Broadway budget.
The old Obi-Wan trick where it just kind of the rope falls down. Yes.
Yep.
I liked the goofy redeemed Scrooge. It's one of my favorite scenes in every version of A Christmas Carol. And he's great in this. I liked watching Mr. Magoo as this redeemed creature who was just silly.
This is the sort of scene where Mr. Magoo, the character, shines the most because he's kind of mumbly anyway, and he's waking up in the morning, and I'm as giddy as a schoolboy and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the kid in the street here giving the audience a little crazy sign, twirling his finger in the circle next to his head. That was a dumb thing I noticed.
I always love that in all these versions, that when members of the public and his like housekeeping staff first get a glimpse of this new Scrooge, they're like afraid he's either lost his mind or like they don't know how to take it.
No. And the end of it here is a bunch of Mr. Magoo's sight gags. He thinks a painting and a bust of himself are both mirrors. He shakes a turkey's wing and pokes the belly of the man delivering it, which I like. Even his own lion-headed door knocker gives us a wink for no reason.
So I took that because a lot of times Marley's a door knocker, right?
Right,
like
and Marley he was here very briefly, kind of superimposed over the lion head.
Yep. So when it winked, I saw Marley.
We did it!
Yep.
Mission accomplished.
And maybe you would know this because you're big on your TV history.
Mm-hmm.
Did Gilligan's Island ever do a version of A Christmas Carol? I know they had one or two Christmas episodes, and I'm trying to remember because again, Mr. Howell seemed like the perfect fit for somebody who could go do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm making this up because he voiced Mr. Magoo or not. I was just curious.
I don't know. Gilligan's Island Christmas, 1964.
Oh, they only did
Joanna
one?
Wilson to the rescue. That's the first. This flashbacks. No, it looks like a clip show.
Okay, interesting.
Boo.
I totally made it up then. It was probably because he did such a good job as Mr. Magoo, the voice. I probably just saw in my mind like Mr. Howell going through it on the island.
I'll have to do some more research, but I don't remember that. I feel like that would be another one that they would air a lot on Christmas, and I don't remember. I only remember this one. But the only last strange bit of this is we mentioned before how the Cratchits are usually harsher to Scrooge, and they didn't feel like it here. Well, not during the song. They move that toast to Scrooge, the founder of the feast, where Mrs. Cratchit gets all offensive about it, to the end here, and it doesn't fit as well when they're all sitting around a giant turkey.
Yeah.
Made more sense with the little goose, so...
It would have made more sense if it was kind of like, you know, how Scrooge shows up at his nephew's house after he wakes up and he's walking in right at that moment where they're about to make fun of him.
Right.
It would have made more sense if they did it like that. He was walking in as she was doing this toast.
Oh, that would have been a great way to combine it.
But they didn't do that.
No.
They did it.
He enters, but they get their Christmas tree with the cake on it and the raspberry dressing with the candle inside.
There you go. What more could you want?
And the world's biggest turkey.
And the world's biggest turkey. Then they animate a whole curtain call as all the players bow and Mr. Magoo brings out the director and accidentally and literally brings down the entire set on him. And we're done.
He did have that funny joke. Magoo, you've done it again. I brought down the house.
Yeah. A few other voices that kind of snuck in here. Maury Amsterdam, who was famous as Buddy Sorrell on the Dick Van Dyke Show. He's two of the businessmen that we first see in the future. And then John Hart does a few minor characters, including the stage manager at the beginning. He's probably best known as being the second Lone Ranger on TV. After they fired Clayton Moore and then ended up bringing back Clayton Moore, but then John Hart would do other Lone Ranger appearances, including that episode of Happy Days. But They're up in the credits, but that's it. Any final thoughts on Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol?
I think I'm going to start adding this one to my Christmas canon.
Yeah, good.
My 3-year-old really loved it.
Good.
And it just gave me, I don't know, gave me good Christmas feelings to watch it. And I can't have enough versions of A Christmas Carol, frankly. They wear on me a little bit when we do 2 months straight of what feels like podcast episodes that cover different versions. But in the Christmas season, I can't get enough. So.
There you go.
So I agree with everything you said there, Julia, except I don't know if I'm going to add it to my Christmas canon. And that's not to say I would turn it off if and when I catch it on TV. It's just that I have a lot of versions of A Christmas Carol in my canon already. So to watch it, this one gave me all of the feels, and it was just that I did really like this. It's just a few of the changes they made, like swapping past and present, and a few of the other things they did kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. But Mr. Magoo in general, I mean, I love Jim Backus, and I think he did a great job.
Yeah, this isn't top 5 for me, but I don't know why this has such staying power. Maybe because it's the first. I know Mr. Magoo himself had a bit of a comeback in the 90s thanks to the Nickelodeon show Wienerville would play old shorts of it, and then he had that movie with Leslie Nielsen. But I guess it's the soundtrack for me. The songs, when they get in my head, that's what makes me want to put it on. And most of them are pretty darn good. Even that stupid, despicable one is an earworm that it's just, well, every Christmas, whether I watch this or not, that la 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 just hangs around for a bit in my head. But somebody had to be the first, and I'm not sad it's this one.
No,
me either.
Not at all.
Well, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure getting together with y'all for this.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
You're going to have to come on our show at some point.
Anytime. Let me know.
Definitely.
But if people want their shoes to click to your clack, they can find you at tisthepodcast.com. Is there anywhere else online you want to promote regarding Tis the Podcast?
Julia, do you want to?
No. You go, Anthony. You know all the
if you go to tisthepodcast.com/Facebook/Twitter/Instagram /Reddit /Facebook group or /Patreon, that'll take you to all those pages.
I never thought of doing it that way. That's clever.
We have a pretty active subreddit and Facebook group in particular. So check us out.
All right. Well, and I've got some show notes up at adventcalendar.house, and you can say hi on Twitter at adventcalhouse. And that's all where you'll find me, because I don't feel like doing all that work. Props to you guys for all you do.
Props to Tom, who's not here, and because Tom's not here, I can compliment him.
There we go.
And I'll say props to him for setting up the website and all the links.
Okay. Well, we will see you all next time for another important first in TV history. Till then, for Anthony and Julia from Tis the Podcast, this is Mike Westfall saying, please watch out for the icy patch. God bless us, everyone. Pass the dressing. The Advent Calendar House and Tis the Podcast are part of the Christmas Podcast Network, located conveniently at ChristmasPodcastNetwork.com. Next time on the Advent Calendar House.
Are you tired of the same old Christmas shows? Well, so are the Simpsons.
Hey, Santa, what's shaking, man?
That's why America's funniest new family is starring in their very own Christmas comedy.
When do we get paid?
They're coming to save the holidays.
Hey, little one, Santa's back. Oh, no!
The Simpsons Christmas Special, Sunday on Fox.